I'm Clayton, 59 years old. That morning, the sea was calm like a sheet of blue glass, and I thought I finally had a day for just my son and me after so many months of distance. Jonah, my boy, had agreed to go fishing. I had prepared everything, even the old stories I hoped would break the ice between us. I never imagined that trip would end with his shove a cold laugh in the Atlantic Ocean swallowing me whole. Before we set sail into this story, I am genuinely curious where you are listening from. A quiet town or a bustling city? Let me know down in the comments. And if you want to join me for this emotional journey, please hit that subscribe button. It truly means a lot to me. The house was too quiet. That was the first thing I noticed after Maggie was gone. 5 years now. The doctors called it a rapid aggressive cancer. I called it a theft. She was the warmth, the sound, the light. I was just the provider, the quiet man in the background who worked too much to make sure the light stayed on and the college fund grew. Our home in this Florida coast town felt like a museum dedicated to a life that was over. Her garden still bloomed, tended by a neighbor kid. Her favorite chair sat empty by the window facing the water. My memories of Jonah, the good ones, are all tied to the sea. Him at 5, his small hands struggling to hold a rod twice his size, his eyes wide with wonder when he reeled in his first snapper. Me kneeling beside him, showing him how to remove the hook. Back then, my absences for work trips were adventures to him. I would bring back a model boat from some faraway city and he would play with it in the bathtub making engine sounds. I thought I was doing it right. Love was a steady paycheck, a safe home, a future paid for. I did not know then that love is also presence and that you cannot deposit moments into a bank for later withdrawal. The distance started as a crack during his teenage years, then widened into a canyon when he left for college up north. Our calls became logistical updates. Need money for books. Flight gets in at 10. Got an internship in New York. I was proud, of course. My boy's smart and ambitious, but I missed the boy who needed help with a fishhook. My retirement was supposed to be the bridge. I stepped away from real estate early, sold my share of the firm. I bought the boat, a small, sturdy center console. I named it Maggie's Hope. My hope, really. Hope that Jonah and I could find our way back to each other out on the water where the only noise was the wind and the gulls. I called him, emailed him, texted him. The answers were always variations of "swamped with work, Dad, next time." Then 2 weeks ago, the call came. His voice was different, tired, strained. "Hey, Dad. Yeah, I think I can get down there this weekend. Maybe that fishing trip isn't a bad idea." My heart, that old and rusty thing, creaked open. I spent days getting ready. I stocked the fridge with his favorite craft beers. I had the guest room professionally cleaned. I tuned up the boat's engine, checked the safety gear, bought new fishing line. I rehearsed conversations in my head, casual ones about nothing important, just talk. When he pulled into the driveway, he looked like a stranger wearing my son's face, sharper, thinner, with a tension around his eyes no 28-year-old should carry. He gave me a one-armed hug that felt like a formality. His attention was glued to his phone screen, the blue light reflecting in his pupils. "Rough week," I asked, trying to sound light. "You have no idea," he muttered, not looking up. The entire evening was like that. He pushed food around his plate. He gave monosyllabic answers to my questions about his digital marketing job. When I brought out an old photo album, he glanced at a picture of us on a long-ago fishing trip and said, "I look like a dork." Then he went to bed early. I told myself he was just tired. The drive was long. Work was stressful. The morning would be better. The morning was not better. A thick, silent fog had settled between us, denser than the morning mist on the water. We loaded the cooler onto Maggie's Hope with the efficiency of strangers moving furniture. The engine roared to life, breaking the quiet of the marina. As we puttered past the no-wake zone, I tried again. "So how's the apartment in the city?" "Fine. Seeing anyone special?" "Not really." "Work going okay?" "You sounded stressed on the phone." "Work is work, Dad." He was looking at the shoreline, not at me. I navigated us out past the jetty toward my favorite spot about 10 miles out where the shelf dropped off and the bigger fish liked to feed. The silence was agonizing. I filled it with memories, like throwing stones into a deep well, hoping for an echo. "Remember that time you hooked that huge amberjack? Must have been 12 years old. Fought it for almost half an hour. Your mother was worried sick watching from the shore with binoculars." "I remember my arms hurting for 2 days, he said flatly, "and you yelling instructions the whole time." It was not a fond reminiscence. It was an indictment. I swallowed hard. "I was just trying to help you land it." "You were trying to control it," he corrected, finally turning to look at me. His gaze was cool, assessing. Everything has to be your way on your terms, even this trip. I was stunned. I just wanted to spend time with you, Jonah. Sure, on your boat, on your schedule, talking about your memories. He turned away again. Let's just fish. We dropped anchor. The rhythmic slap of waves against the hull was the only sound. We cast our lines. The tension was a physical thing, a third passenger on the boat. My hope, so bright and fragile just hours before, was beginning to curdle into confusion and a deep, familiar ache. The incident with this water was my fault. I was reaching for a sandwich in the cooler, lost in my own miserable thoughts, and my elbow caught the lid of his expensive-looking laptop case. The bottle of water I had placed on top of it tipped over. It was not a flood, just a good splash, but it was enough. He exploded. God damn it, Dad! Are you trying to ruin my life? He snatched the computer up, wiping furiously at it with his shirt. I'm sorry, Jonah. I didn't see it there. Do you have any idea what this cost or what's on it? My whole life is on this thing. His face was red with a rage that seemed vastly disproportionate to the accident. I'll pay for any damage, son, I promise. Just calm down. Calm down. You want me to calm down? He laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. I'm up to my neck in debt because my business partner screwed me over. I have creditors calling me every hour. I came down here to breathe, and now you're destroying the only tool I have to maybe dig myself out of this hole. The confession hit me like a physical blow, not because of the debt, but because he was drowning and hadn't thrown me a line. Why didn't you tell me I can help? How much do you need? His anger didn't subside. It changed, morphing into something more cynical. Oh, you'd like that, wouldn't you? The great Clayton swooping in to fix his son's mess with a check. Make yourself feel like a hero, again. That's not fair, I said, my voice low. I'm your father. Helping you isn't about being a hero. Isn't it? He set the laptop down carefully, his movements suddenly precise. Everything's a transaction with you. You paid for things so you didn't have to be there. Mom. He stopped, his jaw tight. Your mother what? The air grew very still. Nothing. Say it. He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw years of resentment crystallize. She was lonely, all the time. You were never there. She waited for you. And then she got sick, and you were there, but it was too late. It was always too late with you. The words were knives twisted with a skill that spoke of long practice in his mind. I felt the breath leave my body. You think I don't know that? You think I don't live with that every single day? And then you just retired. Bought a boat. Like that makes it all okay. Like we can just play happy family now that it's convenient for you. He scanned the boat, the equipment, his eyes calculating. This is a nice setup. The house must be worth a fortune now. Prime waterfront, no mortgage right. After Mom's everything. The shift was chilling. The anger was still there, but it was now edged with a cold, avaricious curiosity. We were no longer talking about spilled water or past failures. We were talking about assets. My skin prickled with a warning colder than the sea spray. We were adrift in a vast blue emptiness, 10 miles of nothing in every direction. The argument had left a vacuum filled only by the immensity of the ocean and the chasm between us. I felt shattered. His version of our history of me was a monster I did not recognize. I had to make him see. Jonah, I began, my voice raw. Your mother. She wanted this for us. Before she passed, she made me promise. She said, don't let him drift away. He needs you even if he doesn't know it. This trip, this boat, it was for her too. It was my promise. He was cleaning a fishing reel, not looking at me. Sentimental. She was always sentimental. It didn't keep her from dying alone in a hospital room while you were closing a deal. The cruelty was so precise it stole my breath. That is not true, I whispered. Isn't it? He finally met my eyes. The will was simple, wasn't it? Everything to you, and then eventually everything to me. The grand Clayton legacy. A house, a portfolio, a boat. He said the word legacy like it was a curse. It's not like that. The trust is set up to a trust. He interrupted, his interest visibly piqued. So you can control it from the grave too, dictate how I get my inheritance. It's to protect you, to make sure you're secure, that you don't what? Don't make my own choices, don't spend your money the wrong way. He took a step toward me. The boat rocked gently. You know, Dad, for a man who talks about family, you have a real problem with letting go of control, of money, of the past, of me. I was backed against the gunnel, the hard fiberglass digging into my back. Not from his physical advance, but from the onslaught of his truth. "I'm trying to let go," I said, defeated. "I'm trying to give you everything, Jonah. Everything I have is yours. I just wanted to give you the memories first." He stood very close now. He was taller than me. I saw my own features in his face distorted by bitterness. "Memories are worthless," he said quietly, almost thoughtfully. "They don't pay debts. They don't buy freedom. You know what would be simple, clean." He was looking past me at the deep, endless water. A profound and terrifying clarity washed over me. This was not just an argument. This was not just a resentful son. The look in his eyes was one of elimination, of solving a problem. My heart hammered against my ribs. The hopeful father was gone. In his place was a terrified animal cornered on a tiny island of fiberglass in a sea of blue oblivion. I turned away from him toward the horizon as if I could find an answer there. It was my final fatal mistake. I heard his shoes on the deck behind me, just a soft scuff. There was no anger in his voice now. It was calm, chillingly conversational. "All these complications, the trust, the paperwork, your guilt, my debt, it's a tangled line, Dad, a real mess." I started to turn to beg to reason I don't know what, but I never got the chance. His hands, strong from a life I didn't know, planted firmly in the center of my back. There was a moment of pure, impossible pressure. Then a shove. The world upended. The sky and sea swapped places. The shock of the cold was absolute, a white-hot burn that seared my lungs even before they filled with water. I plunged down, bubbles roaring in my ears. I kicked, thrashing toward the shimmering light above. My head broke the surface. I gasped, choking on salt water in terror. I grabbed for the side of the boat, my fingers scraping the slick hull. Jonah was looking down at me, not with rage or hate or even triumph, with a serene, detached curiosity like a scientist observing an experiment. He leaned over his face, coming close to the waterline where I floundered. "Welcome to the ocean, Dad," he said, his voice perfectly clear over the slap of the waves. "Say hello to the sharks for me." Then he smiled, a small, polite smile. He stepped back, started the engine with a casual turn of the key. The propeller churned the water beside me, a violent whirlpool trying to pull me under. He gave me a little wave, a friendly goodbye wave. Then he turned the wheel and pointed the bow of Maggie's Hope toward the thin green line of the distant shore. The sound of the engine faded, leaving me in a silence so complete it was deafening. Alone. 10 miles out. The immensity of it pressed down on me. The water was cold. My clothes were heavy. My son had just tried to murder me. The facts were too large to hold. They slipped through my mind like the water through my fingers. I was going to die. He would go home, report me missing, inherit everything. It was so clean, so simple. A raw animal sound tore from my throat, not a scream, a guttural, disbelieving moan, then a spike of pure adrenaline. No, no. The word formed in my core, a hard, cold stone in the pit of my stomach. It was not a plea, it was an order, to myself. I stopped flailing. Panic would kill me faster than the water. I forced a breath, then another. The initial shock of the cold was subsiding into a deep, aching chill. Think, Clayton, think. Frank. My friend Frank. He ran the dive shop. He was a Coast Guard auxiliarist. He had drilled this into me 100 times. If you go over clothes are your enemy. I wrestled with my sneakers, kicking them off. They sank like stones. My heavy flannel shirt was next. It was a struggle with numb fingers, but I got it over my head and let it go. The lighter thermal underneath trapped a layer of water that my body heat for now was warming. My jeans were a problem. I couldn't get them off. I had to work with them. Float. Don't swim. Not yet. I lay back, spreading my arms and legs, forcing my head back. The buoyancy of the salt water helped. I floated, staring at the empty, indifferent sky. My mind was clearing, sharpened by the cold and the absolute certainty of my situation. Jonah thought this was an execution. He was wrong. This was a test. He would head straight in. It would take him maybe 45 minutes. He would dock the boat. Maybe he would wait an hour or two to make it seem right. Then he would call the Coast Guard, the frantic son. My father fell overboard. We were fishing. They would launch a search. But out here in this vastness, with hours of a head start for the currents, hope was thin. I couldn't wait for a search that might never find me. I had to move. But which way the shore was a memory. I spun slowly in the water, disoriented. Then I remembered. The shipping lane. It ran roughly north-south, about 3, maybe 4 miles east of our fishing spot. Big container ships used it. Their radar might not see a single man in the water, but it was a thread of possibility. And there was that rock. A navigation marker little more than an exposed boulder at low tide 7 miles northeast of the marina. Frank and I had fished near it once. It was a tiny speck, but it was land. That was my target, not the impossible shore, but the improbable rock, a plan. It gave my terror a direction. I began to swim. Not a frantic crawl, but a slow, steady side stroke conserving energy. I focused on my breathing. In, out, kick, pull. The jeans were an anchor, but I used the drag to keep my rhythm slow, deliberate. My thoughts drifted from the physical agony to the deeper wound. My boy. The last image of his face smiling. Had he always been capable of this? Or had my failures, my absences, carved this emptiness in him where a soul should have been? The grief was a weight heavier than the ocean. I let it sink. I could not afford to carry it now. Time lost meaning. It was measured in strokes, in breaths, in the relentless cold that seeped into my bones. I saw a fin slice the water 100 yards away. Dolphin. Shark. My heart seized. It didn't come closer. The sun climbed, beating down on my exposed head and neck. Dehydration joined the cold as an enemy. I kept swimming. I don't know how long it was. An hour 3. My muscles were screaming bundles of lead. Hallucinations flickered at the edge of my vision. Maggie's face. Jonah as a boy, laughing. I was starting to fade to accept the slow, cold sleep. Then a sound. A different engine. Not the high whine of Maggie's hope, but the deeper, throatier rumble of a working fishing boat. I stopped treading water, listening. It was coming from the east. I used the last of my strength to wave an arm, a pathetic splash in the vastness. A boat appeared, rounding a gentle swell. It was the Bottom Line, Frank's old sturdy trawler. I saw his figure at the wheel, binoculars raised. He lowered them, then jerked the wheel hard. Minutes later, strong hands were hauling me over the gunwale. I collapsed on the deck, retching seawater, shuddering uncontrollably. Frank wrapped me in a coarse fish-scented blanket, his face a mask of horror. Clayton, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. What happened, I saw. Maggie's hope come back in speeding like a bat out of hell. Jonah was alone. I hailed him. He yelled something about you feeling sick and going home early. It didn't sit right. Not at all. Between chattering teeth, I told him. The words were broken, frozen things. The argument, the push, the smile, the words about the sharks. Frank's face went from pale to grim, settling into a hardened fury I had never seen in my gentle friend. We're calling the Coast Guard. Now. We're getting the sheriff. I grabbed his arm. My grip was weak, but it stopped him. No, not yet. Clayton, he tried to kill you. I know. The words were calm. The cold was inside me now in my heart. If we call them now, it's his word against mine. A tragic accident, a grieving son. He's already planned that story. Frank stared at me. What are you saying? I need to get home, before he realizes I'm not dead, before he starts the next part of his plan. Understanding dawned in Frank's eyes. He nodded once, sharp. All right, we go in quiet. Old Miller's Creek behind my place. No one uses it. My truck is there. The ride back was a blur of shivers and a grim, focused silence. Frank gave me dry clothes from his gear locker, an old sweatshirt and pair of pants that smelled of engine oil and bait. They were the most comforting things I had ever worn. Frank dropped me off 2 blocks from my house. The late afternoon sun cast long, innocent shadows. My body ached in every conceivable way, but my mind was preternaturally clear. I walked the familiar sidewalk, feeling like a ghost returning to haunt its own life. I used my key. The house was cool and dark, the blinds drawn. I moved silently. I took a long, hot shower, scrubbing the salt and the horror from my skin. I dressed in clean, comfortable clothes. I made a pot of coffee. The mundane acts were a ritual, grounding me in a reality that had been shattered. Then I sat in my living room armchair, Maggie's chair, in the gathering darkness. I didn't turn on a light. I waited. I listened to the clock tick. I thought about the trust, about the will, about the safety deposit box key hidden in the freezer behind the old bag of peas. Jonah knew about none of it. I had kept the details of my estate simple in our talks, a deliberate choice that now felt like providence. I heard his car before I saw it, the purr of the foreign engine he was so proud of. The headlights swept the driveway, then cut off. A car door closed, footsteps on the path, a key in the lock. He came in. He didn't call out for me. Of course he didn't. He moved with purpose through the foyer toward my study. I heard the drawer of my desk open, the rustle of papers. I stood up, my bones protesting, and walked to the doorway of the living room. I flipped the light switch. The hallway was flooded with light. Jonah froze, one hand in the desk drawer, his head snapping toward me. His face went through a series of rapid transformations. First, casual annoyance, expecting to see a neighbor or Frank. Then confusion. Then a slow, dawning horror that bleached all the color from his skin. His eyes widened, his pupils shrinking to pinpricks. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked like a man seeing a phantom, a thing that could not possibly be. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. My voice, when it came, was quiet, steady, and as cold as the deep water. "Hello, Jonah. The sharks asked me to return your greeting." He stumbled back a step, knocking a bookshelf. A small figurine toppled and shattered on the floor. The sound seemed to jolt him into a semblance of coherence. "Dad, how the Coast Guard said they were searching." "I'm sure they are," I said. "But you see, I didn't need their help. I had Frank's." His eyes darted toward the window, toward escape. His mind was visibly racing, recalculating. The benevolent, grieving son persona was ashes. This is a misunderstanding. You fell. I tried to grab you. Save it." The two words cut through his stammering. "I heard what you said. Frank heard our whole conversation. He has a VHF radio on his boat. Always on. Always recording Channel 16. He heard you push me. He heard you joke about the sharks. It was a bluff. A good one. Frank's radio was old, probably not recording. But the lie landed with the force of truth." Jonah's shoulders slumped. The fear in his eyes was now mixed with a frantic, cornered calculation. "What do you want?" he hissed. "What do I want?" I almost laughed. "I want the son I thought I had this morning back. But he's gone, isn't he?" I took a step forward. "You came here to find the will, to see how soon you could access everything. The house is in irrevocable trust, Jonah. I am the trustee. The investment accounts have designated beneficiaries, but they can be changed with a phone call. The boat is titled separately. You own nothing. Not yet. And if I am declared dead, the trust stipulates a 3-year waiting period and a full investigation before any assets are released, to prevent exactly this kind of tragedy." He stared at me, his dream of a quick, clean inheritance evaporating. You planned for this. I planned for a lot of things. Just not for my own son to be the threat I needed protection from." I walked to the front door and opened it. The night air rushed in. "You have 2 choices. You get in your car, you drive away, you never contact me again, you change your number, you live whatever life you can make for yourself far away from here. Or I call Sheriff Miller right now. I play him the recording Frank has. I tell him everything. You can explain to a jury why you thought murder was a better solution than asking your father for help." The choice was no choice at all. I saw him weigh it: prison scandal ruin, or a hollow freedom. The hatred in his gaze was pure and undiluted now, but it was powerless. He walked past me close enough that I could smell the sea salt still on him, or maybe it was on me. He stopped at the threshold. "You were never there," he whispered, a final weak stab. "And you are no longer my son." I replied, my voice finally breaking on the last word. He left. I watched his taillights disappear down the coastal road until they were swallowed by the night. I closed the door. The silence of the house returned, but it was a different silence. It was not empty anymore. It was full of a terrible, aching truth. The following weeks were a blur of legal motions and quiet explanations. I met with my lawyer. I altered every document, ensuring Jonah's name was irrevocably removed. It was not an act of vengeance, but of finality, a surgeon cutting out a malignancy. I sold Maggie's hope. I couldn't look at it. Frank helped me broker the deal. The new owner was a young father with 2 little boys. He was thrilled. I saw the hope in his eyes. I wished him better luck than I had. I didn't sink into bitterness. The sea had taken enough from me. It would not take my soul. I started volunteering at the community center, teaching a water safety class for kids, showing them how to put on a life jacket, what to do if they fell out of a boat. Their small, earnest faces, their trust was a balm. It was a different kind of legacy. I had dinner with Frank and his wife regularly. The conversation was easy, filled with the mundane gossip of our small town. We never spoke of that day on the water unless I brought it up, and even then it was brief. Some wounds are best acknowledged with a shared silence. The lesson the ocean taught me was not about the cruelty of others, even those you create. It was about buoyancy. In that moment when I stopped fighting the cold and the fear and just floated, I found a truth. We are all adrift in a vast and often uncaring world. Some people, through their own choices, become anchors. They will pull you under with them, convinced you are the weight around their neck. Love does not mean letting yourself drown. Sometimes the most profound act of love for yourself and for the memory of what could have been is to cut the line, to let the anchor go, and trust that you will remain afloat. The water is cold and the solitude is immense, but you are still above the surface. You are still breathing. And on the horizon, if you look, you might see the lights of a friend's boat or the faint, stubborn outline of a distant shore. The sea holds many secrets, and now it holds one of mine. It tried to take me, but it also taught me how to survive. Not just the water, but the betrayal. The greatest survival is not of the body, but of the spirit. I'm still here, and I am at peace. I want to leave you with a question. Where do you draw the line between saving someone and saving yourself? Have you ever had to cut an anchor loose? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories might help someone else find the courage to stay afloat. If this journey resonated with you, please give this video a like. It lets me know these shared truths matter. Subscribe for more stories about finding strength in the deep waters of life. And if you know someone who might need to hear this, share it with them. Thank you for listening. May your waters be calm and your anchors be light.